Reading from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 19, starting at verse 28. Jesus continued on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. As Jesus came to Bethphage and Bethany on the Mount of Olives, he gave 2 disciples a task. He said, "Go into the village over there. When you enter it, you will find tied up there a colt that no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks, 'Why are you untying it?' just say, 'Its master needs it.'" Those who had been sent found it exactly as he had said. As they were untying the colt, its owner said to them, "Why are you untying the colt?" They replied, "Its master needs it." They brought it to Jesus, threw their clothes on the colt, and lifted Jesus onto it. As Jesus rode along, they spread their clothes on the road. As Jesus approached the road leading down from the Mount of Olives, the whole throng of his disciples began rejoicing. They praised God with a loud voice because of all the mighty things they had seen. And they said, "Blessings on the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest heavens." Some of the Pharisees from the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, scold your disciples. Tell them to stop." He answered, "I tell you, if they were silent, the stones would shout." As Jesus came to the city and observed it, he wept over it. He said, "If only you knew on this of all days the things that lead to peace. But now they are hidden from your eyes. The time will come when your enemies will build fortifications around you, encircle you, and attack you from all sides. They will crush you completely, you and the people within you. They won't leave one stone on top of another within you, because you didn't recognize the time of your gracious visit from God." When Jesus entered the temple, he threw out those who were selling things there. He said to them, "It is written, 'My house will be a house of prayer,' but you have made it a hideout for crooks." Jesus was teaching daily in the temple. The chief priests, the legal experts, and the foremost leaders among the people were seeking to kill him. However, they couldn't find a way to do it because all the people were enthralled with what they heard. This is God's word, the good news of Jesus the Messiah.
A couple days ago, someone asked me what we'd be doing for Palm Sunday this year. I said what I thought would be happening, the sorts of things we would be doing, and how we'd be trying this year to adapt and make the best of it. I did not mention that we would be engaging in some explosive political theater, or at least that Jesus would be. Don't let the donkey fool you. Or our Palm Sunday hymns. Many of them tell of children playing, laughing, and singing. All good, all true. Or our branches waving in the air. Did anyone get their branches colored this week? Or the parade. I was thinking that when all of this is over, we should have a really good parade. But don't let these things fool you. What Jesus was doing was not safe. It was explosive. In this scripture story, we get a strong sense that he had thought this all through, even the donkey. Its master needs it. Now, I don't think it was Jesus' donkey. No, this sounds more to me like a prearranged code phrase in some undercover operation. It's like Jesus has arranged for the donkey to be set there, left there, then retrieved at some time at the right time. When two men come to get it, he might have said, you'll know they're from me because they will say this to you. Its master needs it. Jesus knew what he was about to do and what he would be bringing down upon himself. I doubt even his tears surprised him. Then the parade started. The city was already tense. Passover was coming, so pilgrims were pouring in. Passover, it's about freedom from oppression, national liberation, and God the King stepping in to get God's people back. Well, in those days, they were not free. They were oppressed. Liberation was their long-awaited longing, and generations had been crying to God to set things right. But nothing changed. Now comes Jesus, riding on a donkey. And right away, they're remembering the prophet Zechariah, who said, rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Sing aloud, daughter Jerusalem. Look, your king will come to you. He is righteous and victorious. He is humble and riding on a donkey. Jesus knows what he is doing. He is the king coming. Artists have delighted to tell this scene, like this painting by Jean-Hippolyte Flandrin. It gives me a feeling of the weight of the moment. The crowd is hushed and still. It's tense with expectation and pleading with hope. To the right is a dad holding his infant high, as if he'll later say, you don't remember it, but you were there that day when God's king came and claimed back his throne. Now, I like this painting, but I'm sure the scene was much wilder. A chaotic disorder of excitement. Those folks were fired up and letting loose. It's no wonder some wanted Jesus to tone it down. After all, how will the authorities react to such a wild mob? But Jesus knows there is no holding back. Maybe the artist got Jesus' face exactly right. Serious, determined, even somber. Then they are in the temple. Again, more political theater. Jesus knows what he is doing and knows what people will think of it. He's sending a message. The temple, this place for worshiping God, has become a carnival of corruption. This font of blessing for all people has been twisted into a tool of nationalistic pride. This sanctuary of peace is now used to harbor the seeds of violence. God's house needs a good cleaning out. This is what God's true king does. So Jesus begins. He says, basically, this is what I've come to do, to set things right. This painting by Van Hemesen captures the chaos of the moment. Basically, Jesus has started a riot. And he has sealed his fate. whatever else we need to say about the reasons for Jesus' crucifixion, and there is so much to it, it's clear that from a purely legal and political standpoint, these events this day cause his arrest. Acting like a king, processing into the royal city, acting like a king, claiming authority over the temple. These sorts of actions won't endear you to those who pretend they are in charge. Jesus knows what he is doing and where it will lead. Maybe that's why in Van Hemessen's painting, Jesus' face makes you wonder if his thoughts are elsewhere. In the midst of it all, through the procession, we're told, Jesus is weeping. He's weeping for Jerusalem, the holy city. He knows the voices hell-bent on violence will prevail. They usually do. Zealotry will win the day and everyone will lose. This city will be crushed, its people destroyed. Jesus knows. So he weeps. What of God's way? The even more revolutionary way of peace, of loving enemies and forgiving them, and so changing them. Jesus' way of righteousness and holiness shown through compassion. His way is no less zealous. It's more so, more courageous, more committed, more uncompromising. It will be rejected. He will be rejected, abandoned as a disappointment, tossed aside as a troublemaker. He weeps. Not for himself so much, for us, for our world that continually rejects him and his way, our world he continues to embrace, to love, to save. Are you close to tears these days? Have tears fallen down your face? Mine have. Stress, exhaustion, fear, grief. Those suffering, those dying, those helping. Treasure your tears. Treasure your tears, for with them your heart is joined with God's. Tom Wright says, Jesus' tears are at the core of the Christian gospel. It's the good news, including the good news of God's tears. Jesus' Palm Sunday parade continued through the days following to the Golgotha stone of his execution. So it was in the peculiar politics of the cross. and the unyielding love of God, the way of his victory. God's triumph, necessarily given with tears. Let me finish reading a poem by Malcolm Guite. Jesus weeps for Jerusalem. Jesus comes near and he beholds the city and looks on us with tears in his eyes and wells of mercy, streams of love and pity flow from the fountain whence all things arise. He loved us into life and longs to gather and meet with his beloved face to face. How often has he called a careful mother and wept for our refusals of his grace. Wept for a world that, weary with its weeping, benumbed and stumbling, turns the other way. Fatigued compassion is already sleeping, whilst her worst nightmares stalk the light of day. But we might waken yet and face those fears if we could see ourselves through Jesus' tears.